Ladies and gentlemen, children all, this is yet another episode. Our mission is to bring the stories and experiences of everyday people that have never been heard before. And fortunately for us today, we have a very special guest, somebody who is a social worker, who is a business entrepreneur, and somebody who's been very active in community. So I shall now introduce you to the one and only Matilda. Matilda, welcome to this podcast.
Thank you, Mr. Oldfield. It's my pleasure.
You can see the smiles booming for Matilda, and that shows we're in for a good treat. You came from Sierra Leone. I believe you were born in Sierra Leone, raised in Sierra Leone, and I would want you to tell us, during your stay in Sierra Leone, your education in Sierra Leone, what was life like before you left Sierra Leone, I believe during or after the interregnum, which we call in Creole the kitty kitty?
I left Sierra Leone just after the war. That was the January 6th session, the January 6th event. So that's when I left Freetown. At the time, it was crazy because my family used to live in Bathurst Street, which was very close to the mortuary. So it was one of those situations where you're standing outside and you could see like dead bodies down the road, not too far from you. So that was my experience back then, just before leaving, because I actually did live through that January 6th event. So I saw it all, I lived through it all. And yeah, it was like people say a very traumatic experience for me. But my life back then in Sierra Leone, I always want to give thanks to my parents who are now both gone. They did a really amazing job raising 8 children. We were 8 from the same mom and dad, which is a very rare thing to see, a family of 8 from the same mom and dad. And me and my siblings right now, we are all very close. We are all over the world, Europe, Canada, the US. We talk all the time, every day. So just to give a high five to them for doing an amazing job. But yes.
That was amazing because at that time I could just imagine your age, taking care of yourself, your siblings. At that time, that January 6th, that was way within the climax, if I should put it that way, the climax of the war. For you to have been able to handle your siblings, you acted as a parent, living in Sierra Leone, finding another abode.
Mm-hmm.
What was your thinking at that time? For not only yourself, but living there with living Sierra Leone with your brother, your sister, stuff like that.
Like I said, part of my story, like I said earlier, giving thanks and appreciation to the way I was brought up, because I was brought up to be a responsible individual, right? So because I was brought up that way, when the war happened, when I was living in Sierra Leone, I did not only think about myself. I know I have other younger siblings that could come with me to Canada when I have the opportunity. So I was actually in Ghana when I had the opportunity to come to Canada through it was the humanitarian sponsorship program. So I used that opportunity to come to bring them along with me. I could have been selfish and just come here by myself. I was very young and live the life, right? But no, I was brought up to be a responsible individual. So back then, even though I was very young, I had to. I have my other younger ones with me when I came here. So that was the beginning of my life as a newcomer to Canada.
Responsibility is built in somebody. People usually take stuff from our parents, but some don't. So from Sierra Leone, you guys moved next to Ghana.
Mm-hmm.
There could have been some differences in the lifestyle between Sierra Leone and Ghana, and I don't know if you are tough enough at that time to be in a house or in some kind of refugee situation as documents have been prepared. Could you just write on that for us?
Luckily for me, I did not stay in the camp. I was in Accra. And so even though I have friends, one of my very good friends' mom was in one of the camps. So we usually go there to visit. But for me at the time, I was in Accra. And that's how I was able to get into the sponsorship to be able to come to Canada. But it wasn't easy. I remember, now that we're talking about it, I would love to bring light into that. Because I remember when we just arrived in Ghana, me and my friend, I think it was our very first day. Yes. We actually slept in the streets. We were homeless. No kidding.
No
and
worries.
We slept outside of the UNHCR building all night. This is part of my story. So sometimes I say, if you see, you never know the step or the heights the roads we've tread to be where we are today. Yeah. So just see somebody and be envious or say stuff or do anything. You have to look back and see how far they've come. Yes, I have slept in one of those wooden benches outside of the UNHCR building in Accra before I got my program to come to Canada.
Yeah, in Ghana, I was made to understand I knew there was a refugee camp, a Liberian refugee camp.
Yes.
A Ghanaian refugee camp. I don't know what the Sierra Leone refugee camp was called, but I think the Liberian one was called Pudubua or something.
Bujumbura was the Liberian one, which was way closer to the city. Yeah. And then the Sierra Leone camp was way the villages. It was very far away. I forgot the name of it, but it's like way inside. You actually, it's a trip like you're going upline. That's what people keep saying.
Okay. So at that time, did the Canadian embassy had any role to play in helping you guys out there?
Yes. The Canadian Embassy at the time had a really, especially I'll speak for myself, the program that I was fortunate to come with to Canada was through the Canadian Embassy. Yes, so yes, it has a role to play, especially for myself. And I know that there are other individuals too that came around, that are in Edmonton here that actually came through that same route through the Canadian Embassy.
We are now being educated. We're hearing the story of a woman who from her young age, she took responsibility. Now, this sort of section, she'll be telling us, how did you succeed to get this sponsorship to come to Canada? How was life like? Did you work in Ghana during the time when you were waiting, or you just jumped into this opportunity to say, I don't want to be for Canada?
You know what? It was fate that when you're in the right place at the right time, probably that's what I would say. It was fate that it happened. I was there, and I did not work at the time in Ghana. I didn't have a job, but the opportunity presented itself. I know some friends that were part of the embassy that's were colleagues to the Canadian Embassy. So this program came about, and so that's how I was lucky enough to be part of that.
Good job, good job. Well, listen attentively to what Matilda is saying. Now, our next area has to do with your migration to Canada. You had the opportunity to fly to Canada with your siblings. Arriving in Canada, was it in Edmonton? Where was your abode in Canada? Was it in Edmonton? Was it in Montreal? Where did you arrive in?
My first, it was so funny. Funny, I'll go back and say, when we got the visa to come to come to Canada, it shows like there were some people there were a couple of us, families, that were given this opportunity, and most of them were coming to Edmonton. Mine was in Moncton. I know nothing about Moncton, New Brunswick, so I remember looking for the Canadian map and try to locate where about in this Canada. It's Moncton. I remember, like, I had a visual, kind of vivid memory about that. Just looking at the Canadian maps, like, oh, Moncton is right there. So this is where I'll be heading to pretty soon. So yeah, my family and I arrived in Moncton, New Brunswick. That was in May of 2002. I stayed there for not too long, because one of the reasons why I didn't stay in Moncton, because at the time, one of the things that I wanted to do, I wanted to go further in my education. So in the community college there was a 3 years waiting list. And I was like, no. I'm not going to sit for 3 years and just to wait to get into a community college. That was one of my biggest reasons that, yeah. And then I met the Kaba family. The late Alhaji Kaba, God bless his soul, and his wife, Matma. They were the very first people that I met. Somebody introduced me. It's like, oh, there's a Sierra Leone family here. Oh. So I was introduced to them, and then we became family. So when Alhaji and his family decided to move to Edmonton, I'm like, hey, you're not going to leave me here. I'm coming with you guys. So this is how I moved from Moncton to Edmonton with Alhaji Kaba's family. So we rented a whole truck, put everything in the truck. Alhaji and a friend, they drove those 40 feet truck, and then I flew with my family with Matmat and the kids. So that's how I arrived in Edmonton. But before coming to Edmonton, I already know Auntie Rachel from Ghana. Okay. So I know, of course, I'm going to Auntie Rachel's house. So so I arrived in Edmonton, and I stayed with my Auntie Rachel for a while until she was able to help me around, get my own apartment, and yeah. But that's how I moved from Moncton to Edmonton. Coming to Edmonton, of course, at the time, this was, we were on a 1-year government sponsorship. So whereas the government of Canada it will care for you. That means give you like a monetary allowances that take care of your feeding, your rent, and all of that for a whole year, right? Mm-hmm. But the funny thing is that then you can't work because you are not allowed to make a certain. It's more like you're under wife. Like some people, social assistance kind of.
That's
you're
right.
only you can make even if you want to
so
work, you can make so much money, right?
Yeah,
so you're limited. So kind of like it's gonna keep you in that. That's another segment. But anyways, so I had this 1-year sponsorship for the government of Canada. But the funny thing is that at the end of the day, I have vivid memory of that. By the time I paid my rent, paid the bills, and buy food, I know exactly how much was left. It was 5 cents. No kidding. I have memory of that. It was 5 cents. Yeah. So I think maybe down the road, that's how I'm like. And for somebody who you're new to the country, you pay your rent, you buy your food, and like you only have 5 cents left. That's trouble. Because how are you going to take care of your family? Like that's just like limit you to so many things, and might maybe get you thinking into doing some other stuff that you might not want to do. But it was exactly 5 cents. And then I was like, okay, I can't work. What else am I going to do? And maybe enroll in school and start, So that's...
Matilda, you've touched on some people who are listening. You are listening, Matilda, explaining her transition in charge of the family to Canada. But I want to take you back to, I know about this story about of Moncton, the Cabas and whatnot. I played the role too. But I'm talking about you
I remember now. Interesting.
Let's leave that for next. I want to ask something, which I usually ask.
Mr. Oldfield,
people, I want you to listen to this. You guys listen. Anybody coming from Africa to Canada, there is what we call the culture shock. Mm-hmm. The culture shock and the weather. That is the first thing that affects. So, Matilda, I want you to look you in the eye. Tell people what was your this culture shock thing with regards to weather. When you touched down at the airport at Moncton, and then you tested the weather, coming from a tropical country, una listen them and what they talk.
The funny thing about that, though, when I came to Canada, it was in May.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that bad. But one thing I was like, I look at the ground and the stuff in the street, it's like, it's almost the same. Yeah. If it's not snowing, you're outside, especially if you're like in a suburb area, like, you know what, I don't see much different, right? But just like the air was so like crisp, so like fresh. all of that. But when it comes to winter, I remember my first winter, I was in Edmonton. It was Auntie Rachel that woke me up. There was snow outside. And it's like, hey, don't snow, don't snow. So they could see the kids. Alfred and Sherry, they were very young, even myself. We came down outside like, oh my gosh, it's snow, snow. We were so excited, and just to see the snow and that. And then after a while, it started getting heavier and colder. I remember one of my, in the beginning of winter, when the snow comes, it goes away. It snows, and then I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is not snow. I haven't seen the snow that people are talking about." And I remember once Esther Sheila said, "No, don't worry, because she was here longer than me."
Yes.
She said, "The one that when they come for stay, wait, kind, no say yes, it's not a go again."
That's right.
So I remember that. So part of that culture shock when it's really, really gets cold, I wasn't ready for. I remember there was a day I went shopping at Lucky 97 because then I used to live on 107 Avenue. That was my first apartment. Every time I'm driving by, I always showing my kids, that's my first apartment. They're like, Mom, yes, we know. So there was a day I was coming from shopping at Lucky 97. I stood by, there's a bus stop right on 107 Avenue. And I was standing there waiting for the bus. It was so cold. I almost I'm gonna leave this bags of whatever I've bought, and I wanna run away because it was so cold. My feet were frozen, my hands were cold, and it's like, oh my God, I'm just gonna leave everything there and run. And actually, I was planning on doing that because I couldn't stand the cold anymore. And not too long from that, the bus came by, and I was like, yeah. But those are some of my memories when it comes to dealing with the weather in Edmonton. Yeah.
So you hear now people out there. Matilda is just coming from Africa, a tropical country, where right now, I spoke to people a while ago, a couple of days ago, they were complaining about intense heat. Mm-hmm. Now, our sister Matilda is talking about coming from the tropics, which most of us did, to Canada, especially here in Alberta, whereby you can hardly continue what you've bought. Now, Matilda, let's go to another area, which has to do with, you are educated in Sierra Leone. Mm-hmm. And now you came here, you want to go back to school or you want to get a job, but they tell you your education, how was it accepted in your school, your college, and your eyes were set at a goal to become a nurse or to become a doctor, to become a social worker. But then they tell you have to go back to school. Mm-hmm. You are not driving. You are taking care of your siblings or those you're in care of. How did that work for you? How did that plan for you?
Prior to coming to Canada, I went to St. Joseph's Secondary School Convents, Esto Fidelis.
We have some people from Andosh who won't be
Esto
happy.
Fidelis, yes. So when I finished my O-levels at the time, I was accepted at the Miltimagai College. I wanted to do foods and nutrition. That's what I applied for because way back then, I've always been about food. So I wanted to go and study foods and nutrition. But just prior to that, I have had my acceptance for residency and everything. And then just prior the January 6th stuff came about. So, of course, then not long from that, I have to leave the country. So fast forward and coming to Canada, when I started, way back then, of course, being on government assistant, there's not much money. So I went back to school. I actually had to do upgrading. I went back and started doing upgrading with Northwest College, upgrade your English, math, whatever they said to do, because I can't really walk. So I just okay, I'm just going to go. So you spent my time wisely, Mm-hmm. I went to school and did some upgrading. And during my upgrading, I really wanted to go into nursing. But I was having so much time with difficulty with my math. I'm this math is not helping. Yeah, because I remember being on the phone and doing long distance study in London. I was like, no, let's just forget about this math. And then I figured out, you know what? I could go into social work. I don't need math. In social work, I don't need math. All I need is my English and my social studies. I am good. So that's how I was able to get away with nursing and went into studying social work. But the funny thing at that time, I was very young. I was in my 20s at the time. I have family members that were in my care. Grade 1, grade 4, and grade 10. And I was in my early 20s. So actually a child caring for other children, right?
That's right.
So I used to do nights at the Royal Alec Hospital. It's called, at that time it was the, you're like security guard, but you're looking after patients with patients who are maybe at risk of, maybe they're confused, at risk of flights.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure they're in the hospital. So I used to do that at night, and then in the morning I'll go to school. So I'll finish my night shifts, and then I walk from the Royal Alec, finish my night shifts from the Royal Alec, walk home, change, then walk to, if it's anything that is above -18, I don't walk. But if it's below -18, I will walk. I remember that.
You track it up.
Yes. So I will walk to at Northwest at the time, and do my school, and I finish by 3, come home. And then on the weekends, I used to work in a group home, do like the every other weekend. So that was my time. And then I did that until I was able to finish up with my upgrading, and then applied for a social work. I applied through Grammar Q1, and I also applied through Redia. So Grammar Q1 application was taking too long for me to get receive an answer from them. I actually received an answer first from Redia College. So I was already okay on the move to Redia, because, okay, now I got acceptance in Redia, and just that same week, my acceptance for Grammar Q1 came to me. I'm like, okay, forget Redia, then Grammar Q1 it is. So that's, how I was able to move from decide, okay, I'm not doing nursing anymore, and then I went into social work, and I'm glad I did, because,
Tell me, at that time, you taking care of these kids, and then you are bossing, or I don't know. How was the driving? How did
At that time, when I was doing my upgrading, I used to be downtown. I wasn't driving at the time. I think those couple first 2 or 3 years, I was taking the bus. Like I said, if it's below -18, I would walk. When it gets up to above -18, then I take the bus, because I'm right downtown on 107th Avenue. So I would, And then not long after that, when I moved to the south side later on, I think by then I was already in my social work program. I saved up some money to buy my first car. I went to driving school, and then I learned to drive. I registered my vehicle, get it insured, but I was still so afraid to drive. It was packed outside. Even though it's ready to go, I have had my couple practices from driving, but I was still kind of like scared, until one day I was actually given the nudge. Because what happened was there was an event that I was invited to. Yes. So I was kind of scared. So I'm like, okay, they said, okay, we'll send somebody to come and pick you up. And they were actually picking another community member that would live not too far from me. So I came home, actually worked earlier that day. I came home, I was get dressed, and then I was waiting for the ride to come. But then the ride came, I picked up the other person that was just my neighbor, but then they forgot about me. So I waited, and then I called, hey, how come I'm still here? Who's coming? And they're like, oh, whoever's supposed to come and pick you up is already here, but they must have forgotten about you. So after that event, the very next day, I decided I'm getting on the road. So it was so funny. I decided, okay, I'm just going to drive.
So you're telling us, in other words, something happens for a reason.
Of course, yes.
See? So had it not been they'd have left you, you wouldn't have been able to
My car would have still parked out there.
Let me take the bull by its own and drive. That's a nice one. That's a nice one. As I said, this program, our aim is to bring the stories and experiences of everyday people out there like it has never been told before, because we are to tell our own stories, and somebody has to say it. As you hear our sister now, Matilda, she's telling you her stories from after the interregnum in Sierra Leone, taking care of her siblings, all the way to Ghana, waited for the repatriation, walked through the program, and now they're in Canada. What a story. You've heard it from herself. Now we're going to switch to another area of Matilda. She is now going towards or becoming a social worker. How did this happen, Matilda?
Like I said, I did my social work through Grammar Q, and I decided, okay, because of my strength is not in sciences. So let's do something that I can really, enjoy. So I decided to go into social work. I went to Grammar Kiwan, have my social work diploma, and started working at a very beautiful organization that were so helpful in terms of giving me whatever, like the bricks of my job today, right? They lay the foundation stone for whatever I'm doing today. So I finished Grammar QA and I started working at SACE, an organization that actually work with survivors. I did that for about 10 years. And then I had some other job mainly within the social work field. And after that, I decided, okay, because I was always a business individual too. So it's like I'm always juggling
I'm coming
things.
to that.
So,
I asked you about, we spoke about the social work. I asked you about the social work because many a time our people are faced with some upheavals, with some problems. You had your social work. Have you ever had a situation whereby you have been a racial situation in your job, like people take on you racially?
when it comes to racism, I always say it's not that it doesn't exist, there is racism everywhere. But I am not one of those people that look out for it. It might be there, but I just do my thing. Like maybe at some point I have experienced that. It's everywhere, but I don't pay attention, especially for how it's going to affect me. Because if I go to work and somebody says something and I'm like, oh, you've just been racist, I'm going to have a lot of hard time.
Yeah.
Let's just say it that way. Because life is life. People butthead all the time. We all have differences. So what I do, I figure out what are my differences, what are my biases, and I try to deal with that personally. Yeah. And so when somebody else is come with their own issue, I don't try to take it personally, maybe except if the extreme situation, but I have not experienced that, I'll say. And I always say, I know it's out there, and there are people who have experienced that, but that is not my story. Yeah, it's for somebody else. It might be their case, but that's not mine. So it's hard for me to speak to that because I have not lived that life. Like where I work at, I did my practicum there. I went to do my practicum for 6-7 months, and then after they hired me right away. I didn't even apply for the job. My boss, who was a white lady, offered me the job without even interview or I didn't even apply. He said, well, I've been looking at you throughout. Let me just tell you, you've been on a 7 months interview journey. Right. That's what she said to me. And it was an organization of about 20 to maybe maximum 25 staff. There were only 2 Black people in there. So it's hard for me to speak to racism in that situation. And in that place, I have built a lot of good friends. That this was since 2006. Yeah. I have very good friends from there up to now. My supervisor, when I decided way back then, I was going on vacation with my kid's dad. Yeah. You know what? She came and stayed in my house.
That's good.
Yes, Karen stayed in my house. Yes, she was in my house. I was like at the time, like I need to go on vacation. I needed this time, but I need somebody to come and stay with the kids. She came and stayed in my house and look after my children. This is my supervisor, whose dad was the medical doctor. She was the highest. I forgot his position at Royal Alec. So it wasn't but she's very down to earth individual. So these are some of the people that I've worked with. So for me to say that is not my story. She came and stayed, and yeah, so.
See, at times some people are born great, some are still greatness. Here is a situation whereby came all the way from Africa and look at what you're going through. You, Matilda, my people out there, listen to this program. She's a woman of many parts. We've heard about her social work. We shall be coming to the family. But now, Matilda is also a business entrepreneur. Business in the sense that you're doing catering, you're doing this, you're doing that. Please tell us.
Like I said, one of the things that's made me go into business, I've always been a business person. I remember that even when I was in back home. You know, when I left, when I was in back home, then before I always have like my first business was registered, was called Madao Enterprises in Freetown. I used to back them. I was still very young, supply stuff to the government, like be like a supplier, because I knew somebody was working at the time. So I had business then. I know Madao Enterprises at the time. And then when I left, I went to the Gambia. I would buy stuff and then I send to my mom. She would sell. When I was in Ghana, I would go to Cotonou and I'll buy jewelries and stuff, and then I'll send to Freetown, and my mom would sell and she would use whatever money. I remember there were time when I would send money and I'll call and like, oh, they don't pay you. She's like, oh, say this now school time. I'm like, what do I care about people? It's this school time. Like, parents, right? I send business and like, oh, they don't pay you. But my mom, she's such a tender-hearted person. She's concerned about other people taking care of their kids, because it's September. People are going to buy clothes and shoes, send them begin to school. It's like, what about my money?
Yeah, that's right.
She was like, oh, so this now, it's back to school times. Like, okay, anyways. So I've always have that. And so when I came to Canada, I find ways of making extra income. I remember my first business in Edmonton, yeah, I traveled to visit a family member in London, England. And that I was given, I remember it was £100 sterling. And one day I was coming from my sister's house. My younger sister live in the UK. So I stopped the train. It was in Stratford. So I was walking through Stratford malls. I saw this beautiful shoes and boots. So I used up this £100 that was given to me by those footwears. And I came to Edmonton and I sold them. And guess what? The very next time I went to London, I took $1,000 with me. And that money came from that £100. And so I started doing business. I would come with brought lace, those lace fabric. I used to do that a lot. I would go to London. I'll bring lace and shoes. I was doing that until I think from that I slowly transit into catering. Catering came about because my love for cooking. So I used to cook whenever there is a community event or something going on. I always I would bring with me like tray of food with me. And so somehow somebody said something one day and I'm like, ding dong, okay, so maybe I could start charging for this. Yeah. So that's how I started catering. That's how my catering business started. And I started doing food because I love to cook. And I cook, one of my strengths is I love to cook big. I'm not a small person that can only cook for one person, because my family again was huge. Like I said, my mom had 8 kids, but there were not only 8 of us in the house. She always have other relatives. So I remember growing up, sports was like this big. So they cook like 70 cups of rice, 17 cup rice per day. So, and I was the one cooking. So I'm used to cooking big because this is virtually with sports every day, so that's how started doing the catering. It was easy because, yeah, of course, that's why if you come to my house, I don't know how to serve you small plates because I know how to, big, yeah.
I'm going to hold you there. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard from yourself that Matilda's cooking started from somewhere. She's now telling us in Creole, a big pot. A big pot. I didn't cook. So, because I know, visiting her at that time when she just came here, visit her at that 107, you go eat. You will eat well. And she was a very friendly person. Yeah. With regards to the stuff she spoke about coming from England, I was one of those who bought stuff from her. We bought from her from the initial stage of her business instinct, So she has this business acumen from quite a long time. Matilda, one area we didn't talk about, it's about your decoration, because at some point you were like the go-go person. Nobody does it better than you at some point in time. Let's talk about that.
Like I said, when my decoration business, I did complementary to my catering business. When I started the decoration, it was a very funny way that I started, because I always say in business, you look for opportunity. Always look for don't do something because somebody else is doing it.
Yeah.
You try to find where there is a lack and you provide services for that. So when I started decoration, it was actually, I think it was around the 50th independence anniversary for Sierra Leone. They wanted to celebrate in grand style. Yeah. They were looking for something. And at the time too, like I was on mat leave, I was also looking for ways, something to do, because I'm like, I can't be home and not doing anything. I get really, really bored. Yeah. So at the time, and then I noticed that they needed something. I wasn't part of the executive then, but and then I was like, okay, I went to the line and I started looking, and then I said, oh, okay, now there is a need, and there's no one that can fulfill this need. And so what I did was I sent them pictures. I can provide this, and this, and and they was just curious, and then they're like, oh, okay, how much? And then I threw a seed out there, and they were like, okay, and we talk price, and like, okay, now I have a gig. But say, and I have to like, okay, now I have to like come up with something. So I went online again, and I started looking for ways I could buy these items to provide for these contracts that I have been awarded. So I saw a lady that was actually selling. She used to live in Drayton Valley. She used to be a wedding coordinator.
How far from Edmonton?
It's about 3 hours.
Oh my goodness.
So I saw this ad, and it was a lot of stuff. And again, me being who I am, I sent I said, okay. She was like, how much are you going to pay? And then it was a ridiculous amount of money. I was joking. And so I said an offer. And she's like, oh, okay. I'm like, oh, you serious? And then I went. But the good thing about that too, and I want to speak to ladies. This just came up right as we're speaking. I want to encourage you to always find a way. I know speaking to the family and this is who I am. I have my husband, we work together, but I also always believe in having my own money. We have our family money, but I have a money that if anything goes wrong, I can afford on this. So when I have my business, I was always involved in Osusu. So I have money. I have money with me. When they said, okay, this is how much it's cost to buy this whole business that can cater to 3 or 4 weddings. I have the money without asking anybody. I don't have to go to the bank for loan to pay for it. Again, if I speak to earlier on when I came to Canada, I bought my car, I paid cash.
You don't like loaning, you buy everything yourself.
Yes, I paid cash for it. And that was in 2005, it was $5,000. And I paid cash because I save up. Especially when it comes to vehicles, I've changed a lot of vehicles. I've never taken a leased vehicle. Always paid for my vehicle. I save and I pay. So I had that money, I save and I paid for it. And when I was buying these things for the decoration, I have the money. So it's a good thing because the reason why I said for ladies to have some form of money that you have for yourself, especially sometimes if you find yourself in a situation where you cannot leave, things are hard for you, but you feel like, oh, what am I going to do? It's so terrible. It's impacting my children in a negative way, but I cannot take care of myself out there. So you feel that you're stuck. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm speaking. This just came about. That's why I'm really
telling it to them.
Yes, speaking to women ladies, have that so that if anything happens, you have something. Okay? So that's how I was able to start my business. I have this money. I always involved in Osusu. And I take that Osusu money, I bought this business, and I started doing decoration. I even went to, when I started doing my decoration, after I did the one for the independent, I felt like I needed to do more, and I flew to Ontario to study. I did, yes. I flew to Ontario. It was a 2 weeks program. Oh. Stayed in a hotel, hands-on training. I did my training because now I have the stuff, but I don't know the how. So I again invested, went to Ontario, study, and come back to Edmonton and start doing that. I was so busy. Sometimes I was doing weddings back to back. These days, my events is called Madike Events. And I started with We Own Enterprises. And then people ask you, oh, we own, like, because I used to cater for, I even have let me tell you something, Mr. Oldfield. Mayor Don Iverson has eaten my food. Even Daniel Smith has eaten my food. Daniel Smith ate my food. Iverson ate my food. Oh, again, was it Stephen No, not the other one.
This,
So like
Stephen Mandel.
I think so, but I know for sure those are the two. Yeah, so like I used to cater for other people like that are not only Sierra Leonean and do decorations for like mainstream organizations too. So sometimes the reason why I changed my name because it was We Own Enterprises, because like we own, having difficulty. I have to be explaining myself all the time. That's why I changed to Madike Events, because of course my first and last middle name, Matilda Kadi, so you have Matike. Yes. That's how I changed. So these days I'm not so much involved, but like, hey, if you call me, I'm not too busy, I'll answer. But if not, like, hey, no biggie, I'm good.
That is Matilda, the woman.
Pretty much.
She was a woman of many parts. She is a woman of many parts. So what if you are asked today that there is a huge function coming on within the next month? Will you be in a position to say, then big money comes in, will you be in a position with all your social work job, your family job, will you be able to say, okay, this is good money, I won't let it go?
My husband always say, I like money. So especially use the word big money. Yes, maybe big money I will reconsider.
Talking about husband, you guys are in shipping business too.
Yes.
Why do you want?
I forgot about that.
Something about the shipping business.
So the shipping business is mainly my husband's Mohammed's business. We started together, and then that's his domain, and I have my own domain. I take care of decoration and food. If I need his help, he helps me. If he needs my help, I help him. But we are.
So it's a reciprocal something.
No, it's our business together. The money goes in. This is our business, but that's he's in control. Okay. So if you call me, Matilda, I want a ship, I said no. Talk to Mohammed. I have nothing to do with that. That's his
domain.
Yes, that's his domain. So he's doing that. He does. He's a very hardworking man. He does that. He ship now every. I think every couple months, 2 to 3 months, he ships a container, and he's been doing that. I think he started doing the shipping since pre-COVID. Yeah, there was a point pre-COVID he started doing shipping, and when we started, actually, it was so funny when we started. Very little. When we started shipping, I remember just having the cars. Other than the vehicle, there was only one person that shipped with him, and that was Auntie Sansu. So we have cars, and some of us, but there was only one person that shipped, and now he has so many customers. He has customers from Edmonton, customers in Calgary, and already wherever, and just go and doing stuff. But yeah,
doing all of this, has it done any of the kids, any of your children to say, "Oh, I like what mom is doing. I want to be part of it"? I
encourage my kids to have their own path. But at the same time, I try to instill the values of hard work and just hard work, knowing that nobody's going to come and rescue you. You have to rescue yourself pretty much. So even though right now we both work very hard. Mohammed works like not even 12 hours. He start work from 8:30 in the morning until pretty much 10 in the evening. And I have like these days like a 17-hour day. So we are both like hardcore into it. But then the kids see that, right? So we encourage them, even though they all have their own path, but at the same time, we're able to come back and say, hey, how can we balance each other off? And speaking about balances, sometimes I know as a family, when you're both husband and wife working very hard, you have to create a way to balance each other out, and the kids. So sometimes even in my business, when I get really, really busy, I find those, you guys see my food around on social media. I that's how I show love to my family. That was a day when I finished work at 7 a.m. in the morning. I went straight away to Superstore. I was tired, but I'm like, I'm going to Superstore. I bought everything, came home, did a big spread. We sit down. By the time the kids wake up, like, what's going on? I'm like, we're just having brunch. And we just sat down and ate. till 10 o'clock, and I'm like, bye, I'm going to sleep. So that for me was a good time, 2 hours of quality time of giving back. And I was like, hey, how was it? My husband was like, I'm happy. That's this important of having the time together. We're busy, but you take the little time that you have here and there and just give it, when you're there, full attention. This is what I'm doing. I'm here for my family. Put my phone away. We eat. I sit down, eat, talk, and we always do that all the time.
Our aim, our goal here is to bring the stories and experiences of everyday people, even what you call them celebrities. And I believe there is one sitting right here in front of me. Now we're going to switch around. Matilda, you've been a community person. Tell us what has been your involvement with the community.
As a community person, like I've always, I think from the very moment I arrived in Edmonton, I became part of the Sierra Leone community in Edmonton. Way back there, I don't quite remember which year it was, but one of my very first involvements then, when I got here, I was part of the executive then. I think at that time, I was the secretary at the time. And so my role, I remember, Mr. Olfi, you might not remember that, but I did take lesson from you. I remember buying one of those recording thing. Because, yeah, I still have that. Yeah, I remember because I was like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? So,
I gave it to
I
you.
think so, yeah. I remember, and I think I still have that. And so I would record whatever we were discussing.
Meetings.
And then I'll go home and then I would transcribe everything, trying to make into my minutes. But one of the things that I did back then, at the time, the community was, at that time we have a sponsorship with CIC to bring family members to Canada. Yeah. So as a secretary, one of my role was to compile all those people who would send their application to me, and I was one of the people that would actually sign for their sponsorship.
Because you were an executive member.
Yes. I would sign. It was me and one other person. I think it was the president, and then I was the second person that would sign. So there are a lot of people. There was people that I know of that are in this Edmonton. I didn't know them back then, but they're now here. I have no idea who they were at the time, but I actually signed for them to come to Canada. And if I didn't have any of my family members came through that program, it was just I was just doing my job as a community person, helping the community. My job is I have those people who are here. Some of them were here, some of them were new, applying for this program, and I have this application within me, doing my job. I signed for them, and then they came, and now sometimes I'll look at the name, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this person. I remember when I was doing this application. So that was one of the things that I did back then as a secretary. And then my role within the community has changed. At some points I did that. There was another point where I was a deputy financial secretary. So like I
could remember. I could remember we all played our own roles.
Yes.
And you played a pivotal role too. Other people listening, this is not the first time. We met people who cared for the community. We met people who are the forerunners to sort of create this community. We shall be talking to those people in this program, in this podcast. That Matilda is just explaining that she herself played a positive role. For you who don't know, some of us have played our own roles too. But going further, what do you see the association as right now?
Right now, I think we're all heading towards the right path. I'll say in this world, it's never too late to do the right thing. That is all what I always say. No matter where you're starting from, as long as you're doing something, you're doing the right thing. Get involved, do whatever you can, and be selfless. That's what I say. Don't do things because you're hoping to get something back from it. No. Don't do things because you think somebody's going to say, oh, thank you. Just do what you can. Be selfless, do what you can, and for the time when you can't, it's okay. When they approach you, it's like, no, I'm not able right now because I have other engagements, but you know that you've done your best and you do what you can. That's what I say. And it's okay. If you can right now, you do. If you can, that's okay. But if you do decide, I'm going to be part of the community, I'm going to do something, be selfless. Don't do for what you're going to get or what's in it for you. You know, don't do what's in it for me. Just do, because at the end of the day, you are helping the community. It might not be now, but whatever whatever seed that you plant might help our kids tomorrow. You are planting a seed. I remember when I came here, one of the people that started this organization was Mr. Bolo Kamara.
Yeah.
He's no longer with us. Mr. Bolo Kamara, the late Mr. Bolo Kamara passed away. If I see his kids now, I don't even know them. Yeah. But I remember going to his house. It was an acreage in somewhere in Sherwood Park. Yeah. So that's where this organization stemmed from, right? Yeah. And now see how far we've come. It's so huge now. Like now, before I used to know every Sierra Leonean. No, you don't. Now I don't. And I see people like, oh, okay. I used to like know every single Sierra Leonean here, but now I'm like, no, because we've grown. And that because when he started, Mr. Bolo Kamara, Mr. Big Estate, when they started, there was a need, right? Yeah. And it was a selfless act. And look at where we are today. So when you're doing something, you want to be part of the community, just be selfless and don't feel like, we're ungrateful. Yeah. No. Just do your best. Do what you can. That's just, yeah.
I like that point. I like that point. God bless you for that. We are here to bring the stories and experiences like how Matilda is doing right now. As we're about to round up, Matilda, you have the responsibility to tell us, you've said a lot. What about the family? Matilda's family. You haven't spoken about those you brought and the ones you got here.
Yeah.
Let's hear about this.
My family, we're doing great. I thank God. I have my family and then I have my family.
Yeah, go ahead.
So families, my family now. I do have my beautiful, lovely, caring, amazing husband, and I will not be here doing this if I don't have his back. Whatever I do, he's always there supporting me.
Kudos to
and
that.
I am very, very grateful to have him in my life. I do have my kids, my beautiful daughters, Angeline and Gracelyn. They're always there. Like I work long hours every day, but sometimes like when it's hard for me, I can piggyback on the strength of my husband or my kids. Like they're able to meet me halfway if like I'm running late so I cannot be there in the morning. I have days where like I'm not even coming home at all. Like I will leave on a Thursday and I'm like, I'll be there on a Saturday and I'll be like, baby, I am not going to make it. I was supposed to pick up the kids. Can you do that? So like we help each other and I'm very grateful. I will not be productive in doing what I'm doing right now if I don't have my husband supporting me. One of the things that I would like to say when it comes to family, a lot of people don't know about this, and Mr. Alfie, you might not know, like my kid's dad was sick. He got sick in 2022. He had a stroke. Yeah. We had a really bad separation, but because after his stroke, I stepped in. His sister called me from the States. I stepped in, and I'm actually helping him with his hospital stay and doing, like, I'm the only person helping him. And for me to be able to be in that role to help him, I have to ask my husband and say, hey, this is the situation. Tony does not have family member here. His only family member is in the States. It was a bad situation then, but somebody has called me. This is my kid's dad. I would like to help. What do you think? And it's like, baby, if this is what you want to do, I support you. And so because he has my back to support me, it's I want to be able to do how I'm helping him. So some days I'll be like, I finish work at 7 a.m. in the morning, and then he has an appointment, medical appointment, my ex, at 8:30, which means I'm not able to pick up my kids to school. And Mohammed has to start work at 8:30. So I can just come and go take Tony at his residence, take him to his appointment, and he's able to do that. There's never been a day when he complained. And I'm able to do that because he has my back. So it's amazing. It's just lovely. Like having, I say like, I don't know what I must have done really, really good in my past life to have such an amazing husband that stands behind me in everything that I do.
Salon people, Africans, you hear what a young woman has just said. Even though she had somebody who, her daughter's father, fell sick and they had problems in their relationship, and the guy is sick now. But because Mrs. Koroma has a supportive, very supportive husband who's a humanitarian, he is given the green light for our sister here to help the man who is sick now. And you are blessed, and he's blessed too.
Yeah.
This is a lesson for us to show that, at times things happen. We're not going to dwell on that because we're now going to
no,
talk about something again which is very touching. If you are done with this, your family thing, I want us to round up with something which has to do with also a family thing. I'm Sierra Leonean, you are Sierra Leonean, we're all Sierra Leoneans. For those who are not even Sierra Leoneans, we just celebrated our 63rd independence anniversary. But in my opinion, there was nothing to celebrate. Because right now, as I speak to you guys, Sierra Leone is in a crisis. I'm not being political here. Don't get me wrong. Our country is now beset with an infestation of drugs, dangerous drugs. We see the youth who have been badly affected. People are in Kush, they're in Tramadol, and all sorts of things. As a community person, as somebody who's a parent, who's a wife, who is a humanitarian, somebody, a social worker, what advice? Because videos come out whereby people are buried en masse. They were buried. I can tell you for free, the mental home is filled with young boys and girls who are the future. What advice would you give to the government? Both the government and the opposition, parliamentarians, people who are supposed to run the country. What advice would you give to them?
I think this people have to know governments, individual, family. We have to know that this is a crisis. We have a crisis at hand. And we have to try our ultimate best to handle this. It's already getting out of control.
It is.
Because if we are not able to handle this in the right way right now, we are going to lose a whole generation of people.
God bless you.
And that's what we have to know. We are losing a whole generation of people. So when we lose a whole generation of people, you sit back and like, what does that mean for us as a nation as a whole? Yeah. What does that? That's what we have to think about. We have to stop. If you are somebody that is benefiting from this, maybe think about this and say, okay, with all this youth, because this is affecting the youth, whether you're from a good family, from a poor family, it's affecting everybody, like a wide variety. So think about this. If you look about the amount of death that is happening, or people that are losing their mind in terms of the school situation, what would happen when we don't have this set of people? Where are they go? So if this whole generation is gone, we are going to be lost down the road as a Sierra Leone. Yeah, as a community, as a nation.
As a nation.
Because who is going to give birth to those kids? How are we going to procreate? How are we going to go forward? And sometimes I think about this. Is this this is my thinking. Is this like a genocide? That's how I'm thinking about it in my way. Is this a genocide happening? It might be a genocide. That's why we have to be vigilant enough and say, hey, we have to stand up and take a really strong stand in addressing this issue. Because if we don't address this issue right now, we are going to be lost. The whole Sierra Leone nation is no longer, it will be wiped out if we don't control this and eradicate this. So please, I speak to everyone that is actively involved in this Kush business. Think about the future. Think about the Sierra Leone children. Think about everybody. And if your grandparents, your great-great-grandparents were able to leave this beautiful country for you today, how would you want to leave that for the generation to come? That's what you should think about. Because if we're involved in this, there's not going to be a Sierra Leone. So I'm sure you want to leave a healthy footprint. So I'm pleading to you to stop what you're doing and maybe take active role in eradicating this Kush business in Sierra Leone.
Thank you. Added to that, if you, the government officials, you, the politicians, you know those who are responsible for importing this Kush and dangerous drugs, because trust me, there is Kush in Canada, there is Kush in England, there is Kush in America, but the ones going to Sierra Leone is more than that.
It's so
Just
deadly.
Imagine boys and girls going into tampering with the
graves.
The grave sites, taking bones of dead bodies. Come on, what is this?
Yeah.
So if you know who is responsible, no cherry picking. There should be no this na me pikin, this na party pikin, this na if na APC person na ola, if na SLP grip am, they should be brought to books. I want to thank you for that as a mother. This is how we'll end up today. But generally, what is your take? What is your view of the whole situation happening right here, right now?
The whole situation when it comes to community podcasting?
Yes.
I think like it's nice for people to be able to have a place where they can speak about their stories, because sometimes it can be empowering when you're going through something but you're not sure what's going on in your life until you listen to somebody else. You're like, oh, it's like a moment where you're like, oh, okay, now I can identify, I can testify, So really, I would say like this, you're doing a really good job, and I want to commend you to be able to say, okay, again, that speaks to that selflessness to say, okay, this I'm taking these 2 hours from my time and partner with the Mr. Olvi Corner and say, okay, I think within our community we've had vibrant people who have wonderful stories, and I would like to take our own time in highlighting the voices of people in our community. I want to say, hey, thank you, you're doing a good job, and continue to make space. Again, earlier on we discussed about, somebody brought up the song from one of our musicians from Sierra Leone, and Cool Donkey, Salon today, Salon are we all yon?
Who happens to be your cousin?
Yes.
Salon Milan,
Salon are we all? Let's do a good job in eradicating Kush and hold Salon again as one. Salon Milan, Salon for we all. Yes. Thank you very much.
We had this meet and greet, and I did reiterate about something which usually happens. This is Canada, now man country. The lake man talk no listen. Could you just hand up with that for us?
Some people might say that this is not Canada. I've heard that before, not woman country, but it doesn't really serve anyone. I will tell you that. At the end of the day, if you have that type of mentality, the person that, especially if you have kids, it is the kids that suffer the most, because especially if you're going through breakup in your family, somebody want to have that, as my father can say, tamai attitude. At the end of the day, like, again, we cannot always be strong women all the time. I need my man I want to go home and just relax. I need somebody to be there too. I need him to help me carry myself. So it is very, very important for me to have him in my life. I know when I was praying to God to get someone, I always pray that I need a steady man in my life. A steady man. You know who's a steady man? Steady man is Oprah's man. Oprah is a very strong, like, she, in her own right, this is who she is. Yeah. But I am a strong woman. If I need a man that is there, that understands, that's able to take care of himself as long as me. So I respect him. I value him. I am not the woman in the house. Yeah. He is the man. He takes control. He does all of that. And again, that is his right. Yeah. So for some other women, it might work for them. For me, he's my king.
He's your king?
Yes.
God bless Mohammed. Mr. Mohammed Koroma, you are the king. And we have other kings here. I said, watching us, we have lots of other kings. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you.
And when I say he's my king, sometimes I'm like, God, please don't be jealous because you're first.
Today you've made us, we've touched on all the what about the kids? What advice do you have for the kids? The schooling, the comportment, listening to the culture.
Again, going back to the basics. Respect your parents. Back for your days shall be longer. We always have to, they say, if you don't know where you're going, you should know where you're coming from. Yes. Always that is the backbone from which I was brought up. And I respect my elders, and I encourage my kids to be respectful. You have to respect your parent. This is Canada. yes, if you want to be spoiled, there is every avenue for you to be spoiled.
Oh, yes.
Because of course your kids have the right, but you always have to know this. How is that going to benefit you as an individual, right? So if your parents are saying something, it's just because they want you. They're saying this for your own good.
Yeah.
It is because they want, at the end of the day, they want to sit back and smile and say, hey, that's my daughter. And that's why they're trying their best to guide you in the way that they are right now. As children, sometimes, my dad was very, very strict, right? Back then, I was like, oh my God, my dad is mean. Like, right, my papa bad, right? You know? But he was not really doing that because he want to be mean to me. He's doing that because he wants me to be able to say, hey, tomorrow when he's not here, I can hold it within me, right? I have all the values. Like, there are certain things, even as a grown woman as I am right now, because of my upbringing, there are things I will never say on Facebook or social media. Because I have my elder brothers. Yeah. I have my sisters. They're there. They're looking at me. So even I want to be like, yay, I caution because I was brought up in a certain way, right? Yeah. So I encourage children to, respect your parents, respect your elders, and try your best to be educated. Education is key. Tomorrow when you're educated, you have if nobody gives you anything, there is something that you can always fall back on. Yeah.
Some people say, me picking and I like go salon and I like talk about salon business, enough for talk Creole, enough for eat African food. Your take on that? My
kids went to Freetown last year. They love it. They keep that one of and they were both born here. They absolutely love it. They had such a good time. And even my daughter here, she loves potato leaves. My favorite food in my house, I make all this nice food. Potato leaf and okra soup. It's like an everyday thing. Like I have to have that in my house every week at least, So like my kids, they eat the food and they love the fact that they went last year and they had such a positive experience of going back. They always asking that was such a powerful experience for me when I went there. And Angelina always say I would really love to go back. And this is why, again, we have to tackle this kush business. Yeah. Because if the kush is not tackled the way it's going, I would be afraid to have my kids go there because I don't want to put them in a place of that's going to be of a disadvantage to them. Right? So that's why we have to make sure this is something that we handle and eradicate as fast as we can, pretty much. Yeah. But yeah, encourage if you can take your kids, and it's nice for them to go and see where they come from. What is the culture? Encourage them, teach them the culture, even the languages at home. They can learn the Creole, the Timini, the Mende, the Fula, whatever is your language. Speak to them. It's very important for them. Even we have people here from indigenous communities. They are learning the Cree and the Blackfoot. Why about you not learning your own kids? What's the African language? It's very, very important for them to know. So yeah, I really recommend if anybody can try.
We've been listening to a very vibrant social worker and woman of very many parts. We want to thank you.
Thank you,
Mrs. Matilda Koroma. We shall come with you again.
Yes.
Because you are very educated. You have so much to give. And we hope we'll get many more of you. But I promise, I know with certainty that my powerful producer and my cosmogenic and tantalizing director would agree with me that we'll get you back here on this podium. It has been so nice and educative.
By God's grace.
Thank you. On behalf of everybody here, I want to say a good tata to everybody. And we shall heed it again. Thank you. God bless.